Welcome to the glaze area. This is where you're going to glaze. We offer a bunch of different glazes. These are the test tiles for the dipping glazes, and we also offer paint-on glazes, which the test tiles are associated with here and here. We want to keep any pieces in the process of being glazed in this area to avoid any sort of materials getting in other parts of the studio, just for safety. On the other side of safety is we have our hood, which is to ventilate the area and kind of take out any particles that are out in the air. And when you're glazing, we would like for you to turn it on. There's a dial here, and you can turn it to the 30-minute mark, and then it'll just turn off automatically when it's all set. Also, when cleaning, we always want to do our first wash, so anything that actively has glaze on it that we're washing, whether that be our hands or any tools, in this bucket over here, just to keep the glaze materials from going down the sink and entering the water system of Northampton.
We have our underglaze station. These underglazes are made out of wet clay and stains, and before and after firing they do look the same, whereas for our regular glazes, because they're made out of different minerals and chemicals, they look different in liquid form than they do in their final form. Here we have a piece of bisqueware that just came out of the kiln. We already wiped it down with a towel and sponge. It's just to get some of the clay dust out. You can take a brush and you can dip it in one of the underglazes and brush it on your piece as many times as you want to get whatever desired saturatedness that you'd like. Here is an example of an underglaze piece. And underglazes you can use on bisqueware or greenware because, again, they're made out of the wet clay, so it's a little bit different than glazing. So this is our wax. You're gonna have to use wax with any piece in the studio just to protect your piece from breaking in the kiln and also from ruining our shelves, because glaze likes to travel down when it's firing because of the high heat. And so what you'll do is you'll open this and you'll dip with a sponge brush. That was very excessive. And then you are gonna have to wax a 1/4 to 1/2 inch on the bottom of your piece. And when you're waxing the bottom of your pieces, you just want to make sure that you're only waxing things that you don't want any glaze to stick to, because it's really hard to take off, and any wax on your pieces that you don't want will have to be sent through the kiln again, and it's just this long process. And you want to also make sure that once you're done, you clean your brushes, because the wax is really hard to get off again, and leave your station clean once you're done.
So once your piece has dry wax on the bottom, you are going to take out a glaze and then find the associated bucket. And once you do that, you'll open it, and because of the heavier materials that are suspended in water when you're actively using a glaze, the more time it sits unused, the more it settles to the bottom. So it's very important to mix your glaze for at least a minute or so. The more time the better. You really want to get as much as you can, focusing on the bottom where the heaviest materials are sitting. And once the brush, we use toilet brushes to mix, kind of flows easily through all the material, and a significant amount of time has passed, we can move to the next step. So there are a few options for actually glazing your piece. You could just hold the piece with your fingers, trying to minimize the points of contact with unwaxed clay as much as possible to make it easier for you later on. We also have these tongs, which are really good for really reducing the amount of surface area that you're covering and having a really secure grip. And so once you kind of hold the piece, you can then dip it right into the glaze. You want to keep it in there for no more than 3 seconds and kind of let any excess drip off the bottom. You can do a little shake if you really feel secure to kind of get as much of that excess off. And you can see here, even though the bottom is waxed, there is still some residue. And so it's very good to wipe off any remaining glaze. And the reason that we try to keep as little glaze from the bottom as possible is so that as the glass and clay melts within the glaze, it doesn't stick to what are our kiln shelves. So that way we don't have to pay way too much money to replace them. And once you're done and it's dry, you can place it, swift movement to let the tong go. Make sure you clean this in our rinse bucket. We just put it on a sponge for now. And as this dries, you can, or when it's dry, you can kind of rub over any spots left by the tong to get an even surface so that you get an even glaze. Once you're done glazing your piece or whatever you're working on, you want to make sure that you wipe down whatever area you were working in and just kind of rinse this sponge once again in our glaze wash bucket. It's our best friend. And by then, probably your piece will be dry. And so we can take our beautiful piece and walk it over to the shelf of the queue to be glazed. And essentially just find a spot and place your friend. And before you know it, your piece will come from out of the kiln and be brought over to our lovely finished work shelves right over here. And you can come pick it up whenever you wish. Please pick it up. We have so many old pieces.